Welcome to Something Came from Baltimore. I'm your host, Tom Gowker, and tonight on the phone is John Doe from the legendary punk band X. April 26, 1980, X released their first album, Los Angeles, on Slash Records. The original band is DJ Bonebreaker on drums, Exene Cervenka on vocals, Billy Zoom on guitar, and John Doe on vocals and bass. And they are a punk band that actually made it to the big time. There's others. There's Black Flag, the Minutemen, the Circle Jerks, the Dead Kennedys, the Sex Pistols, the Damned, Misfits, the Ramones, and X. They're all bands that stood the test of time. X had a good run in the 80s with the MTV video ads and a hit single from the movie Major League, Wild Thing. And then the band split up in the 80s. Exene went solo. John had a great solo career and acting career. They've been together off and on. They tour off and on, and now they're back with a brand new album on the Fat Possum Records, and it's a great album, and it's called Alphabetland. John Doe, welcome to Something Came from Baltimore.
Oh, so many things came from Baltimore.
I heard you came from Baltimore. How was that experience?
It was horrifying, like everyone's experience in Baltimore. That's the one thing that unites us.
Yes,
is that we're proud of being called Baltimoreans. Are some of the most cynical and sarcastic people in all of the land.
Don't you love it though?
And actually, I hated it. That's why. I mean, I did love it in its own perverse, dark-hearted way, which prepared me in my career as a punk rocker to be a wise ass. And I was in third grade. I realized that there was this thing called sarcasm, where you say one thing and you mean another, and I was like, what? What is it? Oh my God, this is so weird. It's a big city. That was a good time. I learned a lot. Played down in Fells Point for tips, and that was probably in the early 70s, 72 to 75. I left in the beginning of November 76. And I mean, the advantage of Baltimore at that time was that you couldn't really exploit anything. And so people did art for just the sake of doing something to do, not to be bored and not to be, just to do something. And that's as a young artist, I think that's a great lesson to learn. But I wanted to hit the big time. Yeah. I hit the big time punk rock stage in LA, so that's what I did.
Punk rock today is still respected, I think. The attitude is still there. There is the Outer Bar, the Soundstage, Metro Gallery. People are artists there. They're respectful. It's a good scene. Your album was moved up a little just to pair it with the release of Los Angeles. 40 years. Do you feel that you wanted to hit that mark, that release date, or did you want to wait a little before this pandemic went away? Or
as part of the whole story leading up to the release, Fat Possum had released the first 4 records because we got the masters back. They also do things because they believe in it. They make art for art's sake. We had planned on releasing this record in August or September, and they called up our manager. Then he called us and said, look, they want to release this right away. We had just mastered it the first week of April, and they said they want to release it the same week that Los Angeles was released, the record Los Angeles. And we thought about it for 5 minutes and said, cool, do it. It's going to be on Bandcamp, even better. What a indie kind of punk rock thing to do. But I'll say that releasing the record also it made us feel like we're going to give something to our audience, to, maybe a potential audience that isn't depressing. There's a lot of timely lyrics on it that we didn't intend, but that happens when stuff changes, when things are on the edge, when you experience something in your life that is very different, then you hear things differently. You break up with somebody, you get your heart broken, somebody dies and it's close to you, and you're listening to songs and it's like, oh my God, that's about me, that's my song, And we've been writing about these kind of subjects for a long time, where the world or the person is on the edge. This record, there's Goodbye Year, Goodbye, or Water and Wine, is very topical, because it's about disparity and who gets water and who gets wine.
The divine that defines us, the evil that divides us. There's a heaven and a hell, and there's an oh well. Who gets past to the head of the line? Who gets water and who gets wine? There's a heaven and there's a never. There's no tomorrow, only forever.
There's a great like a sax on there. It reminds me of Morphine. It's really really faint in the mix. It's awesome. Like a great touch to it. Unison. I actually, before I knew I was going to interview you, I was listening to Kathleen Edwards. I love her voice, and what I've been doing is, taking Spotify, and then I'll pick one artist and walk the whole time, like for 5 miles, listening to the one artist. And I was listening to her, and then I was like, I don't know where she went, because she hasn't put anything out for a while. But you guys came up with a duet, The Golden State. It is perfect, and you guys sound great together. I thought maybe you might have written it. The lyrics are very specified for that. The TV show, it's True Blood. It's from the TV show.
You are the hole in my head. I am the pain in your neck. You are the lump in my throat. I am the aching in your heart. We are tangled, we are stolen, we are living with things are hidden.
You are something in my eye, and I am a shiver down your spine. You are.
Thanks. I wrote that for my sweetheart, and it actually so it has a happy ending.
Yeah.
Which it wasn't when it was written. Kathleen is a terrific singer. She's recorded some stuff. I don't know what's happened with it. I'm sure it'll be coming out sometime. But she she had a very public relationship with that dude from Bon Iver. I forget his name. They made a record together, and it was a very vulnerable record, and then something happened with the relationship, and she said, you know what, screw all of you, and she quit. She publicly said, I'm done. I'm out. And she opened a coffee shop up in Hamilton or outside of Toronto. And the name of the coffee shop was Quitters.
Wow.
And she did that for a couple of years. Yeah, she's a great singer.
Longevity, that's a hard thing to have. You can write a song and be on the radio, or, be special when you're 24 and then forgotten. And I'm really grateful to all the people that have come to see X and kept us alive all these years. And it is.
I was watching some videos of you and Exim, and you were promoting the Under the Big Black Sun book, which came out in 2017. Totally recommend it for our listeners. And then I thought, what would it be like if you were cast as John Goodman and she was cast as Roseanne on the Roseanne show? How many episodes do you think that would last?
We'd be lucky if we got through the pilot.
Yeah.
No. Exene and I, we are partners.
Mhm.
You know, we survived getting divorced. We survived all kinds of making this new record. I love Exene, and she loves me. We're like literally soulmates. And when we sing on stage or in the studio, like I can kind of predict where she's going to go, and she can kind of predict where I'm going to go, whether the phrasing is different and stuff. So, no, who knows? I think Exene's a lot more. She's a lot more interesting than Roseanne, but who knows?
Yeah. You know, when I was looking at the book, I realized that there's 5,000 books in print with John Doe. Are you any way able to tap into that stream of money? Or
that was my plan. When I changed my name, and I'll give John Waters and Andy Warhol a little credit for that. You know, having a stage name but it didn't seem to work out. I thought I could hide from the government. I thought I wouldn't have to pay taxes. I thought, you know, I had all kinds of grand schemes, but none of it seemed to have worked out. But I'm okay.
Madam Speaker, tonight it looks like the great state of Wisconsin is going to go ahead with their statewide election tomorrow after the state Supreme Court.
I'm a big Rachel Maddow fan. Before the Trump administration, she used to tell a story, and then it wove into maybe something that's current. So you get a backstory. Now it's, you know, balls to the wall. Like she's, you know, screaming bloody murder, and good for her. She had told a story once on the show that John Doe is her favorite singer of all time, and that she was on an Amtrak with her mom and I think her girlfriend or wife at the time, and they bumped into you, and she was blown away, and you guys were playing cards together. Does that sound something familiar?
Oh, absolutely. But it wasn't just an average Amtrak. There used to be a thing called Roots on the Rails, where people would pay a pretty pricey ticket to get on these vintage railroad cars that were attached to an Amtrak train. And they would attach, like, I think it was 5 cars. They'd have 3 sleeper cars. They had, and some were, you know, bigger rooms, and some were just like bunks. But they were all vintage. They were all from the, like, 40s, 50s, 60s. And then there was a dining car, and there was also a performance car. So, and Rachel and her wife, they were on the first one, and the second one she brought her, and it was great because I was, you know, I'm a big fan, and she, you know, said how much she liked X, and it's like, oh, you know, big appreciation society, and but we, you know, saw things eye to eye and just hung out a little bit, and, you know, drank gin, and was on a, you know, this awesome trip going from like Albuquerque up to Chicago, and that was great. And then the next one, she brought her mom and dad, and we we played Crazy Eights and gin rummy in the dining car. I killed them in Crazy Eights. There wasn't even a competition, but gin rummy, which is a little bit more strategy, they were good. They were there and very fun, easy going, you know, having a good time. But hell, you're on these cool ass train cars, and like, if you're having a bad time, that's on you.
I don't remember how she, you know, wrapped that up into some government or political issue, but I remembered it, and I was sitting there listening to her, and I was like, I tried to Google that last night. Like, was I dreaming that or not?
No, it's true. It's true. She even did a thing where she, I don't know, she showed a picture of us on Dick Clark or something like that. I remember somebody sent that to me.
Cool.
It's cool. You know, I mean, you always wonder, like, are you just yelling into the wilderness, and does anybody get any of this crap that you do? And so when somebody, you know, like her, kind of validates what you've done. It's like, wow, I haven't wasted my entire life going into punk rock bars and, yelling and jumping around.
Yeah. You acted in over 50 plus movies. What was your favorite movie that you got murdered in?
Oh, Roadhouse, without a doubt.
What was the murder? Like, was it just like a shot, or was it an explosion?
It was a knife. It was a knife to my solar plexus or heart. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I actually, at some point, I'm going to write a memoir, and I I have a whole chapter that I've written on Roadhouse because it was completely absurd. It was Hollywood on steroids because it was a Joel Silver production, and just all kinds of insane stories. Ben Gazzara was in it, and so was Sam Elliott, and of course,
Patrick Swayze. Yeah.
Patrick Swayze, and so at some point, Swayze throws a knife at me. But the way that they did is they welded a barrel, like a little tube, onto the top of this freaking 14-inch Bowie knife, and then put a wire through that barrel, and then attached the wire to my chest with a big protector thing, and then just winged it across like 20 feet of open space. And so there's just a big pointy knife coming right at your gut. And that was hard.
Yeah.
Was like, it gave you pause. It's like,
that's a real reaction. You weren't acting when that was coming at you.
I was acting my ass off. Are you kidding me? I was, So anyway, that was a good time.
That's awesome. Yeah, that movie is one of those guilty pleasure movies that that you wasted time watching it, but
yes.
And there's no redeeming value whatsoever. But everyone has great hair, beautiful hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And anybody who tells me that they like that movie, male or female, I say, you are really in touch with your 13, 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
However that exists in your psyche, you are not far from that, because it's like, girls in skimpy clothes, dumbass guys. It's just I have referred to it as the most expensive B movie ever made.
Billy Zoom is the Ruth Bader Ginsburg of your band. He had a health scare, multiple health scares.
A couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, I remember where there was a GoFundMe for him, and they exceeded that. But my concern was that you would assume that if someone who had kind of been in the business for that long would have that money to be able to ride out something like this, but it's a wake up call that's not really true.
Yeah, musicians have very little safety net. A lot of musician friends have no health care. Yeah, actors and artists in general have no safety net.
His piercing stare at the crowd, it's really effective. He didn't have to jump around. He just stare at people.
Yes.
It really worked. I saw that now he sits down in a chair and he does the stare.
Yes, it's to unnerve and to make people ask questions.
Yeah, definitely.
Now if you love me, please don't leave. If I can hold you, let me squeeze. My heart goes round and round. My love comes tumbling down. You leave me breathless.
I said, being in a punk band is a risky financial profession. In your career, when did you finally relax and say, okay, I think I'm okay? Was there a time in your life you're like, okay, I think I'm going to make it?
Oh, well, there's a few different versions of that. I didn't buy a house until I had done Great Balls of Fire and Roadhouse. I've been working in music for 10 years or more, and I couldn't afford to buy a house. And that was back in 87, 88. No, maybe 1990, something like that. And as far as okay, I'm not going to become a bum on the street at some point. I don't know. That's still up in the air now. I feel about 4 years ago, I figured, I'm good. But now it's back. It's back on as a possibility. I didn't be an artist because I thought it would be like a moneymaker.
No, that's what I'm saying is there's so many people that are sidelined and still making art, but you don't know them, and you made it to the finish line. You know, you're actually
Yes.
this amazing album that just came out that is just as strong as the material that you had 40 years ago.
Well, it wasn't easy, and I'm not going to pretend it was. It's hard to get out of your head. It's hard to believe that you're just going to do it, and it's going to be, you're going to play to your strengths. You're not going to try to reinvent the wheel, and that's kind of what we did.
Yep.
So I'll give our producer and Billy Rob Schnaff and Billy Zoom a lot of credit for just saying, just keep it basic. Don't do a bunch of. If I was producing it, I probably would have put in more crap. Wouldn't have necessarily been as good.
Is this a swan song, or are you guys feeling jazzed up like this is a great album, or you're gonna? I mean, things have changed. So I mean, you're gonna see how this all unfolds this year, and then say, are we gonna keep going? Because this album is just
we are
chapter.
definitely going to keep going, and whether we record or not, I mean, we just did this one. So leave me alone.
First song is Alphabetland. It really sets up the tone of what this album is going to be at. I am totally in love with it. But are they saying Alphabet Mine? Or are they saying, I don't hear the land, Alphabet Mine?
Oh, it's Alphabet Wrecked, and then Alphabet Mine, and then Alphabet Land is the title, because Billy always kept referring to the song as Alphabet Land. And it's like, the song was originally titled Mercury. Exene had this vision of the god Mercury being a destroyer or a bringer of life, and set him in this. Is he destroying the alphabet, or is she reclaiming it? And there's all these, kind of conflict between things. But the song was originally called Mercury, and Billy kept referring to it as Alphabet Land. It's like, Jesus, will you just? It's called Mercury.
Del 38! Del 38! Nightmare! Del 38! Del 38! Nightmare! Del 38!
Delta 88 Nightmare. But who is Mac and who is Doc?
Cannery Row, John Steinbeck. Exene and I were huge John Steinbeck fans, and back in 77, maybe 78, she and I and a couple of good friends drove up to Monterey, thinking that there may be some remnants of Cannery Row and that, the Bohemians and that whole lifestyle. And once we got there, we realized, oh, hell, we're the Bohemians. Because it was all full of rich people, and it had all been gentrified.
Star Chamber has a little Dick Dale guitar solo.
Then I just had to go. And it's a half step. And so that's very much like the Dick Dale surf stuff. So yeah, just picking up what's already there, and you take what's already there and then you amplify it, or you extend it, or okay, that was one of the things that Ray Manzarek taught me. He said, if something sounds good, do it twice. If it sounds dumb, then just keep with one. But if it sounds good, try doing it twice.
Wow.
I still use it.
Yeah, that's one of those. You need to get a master class and just tell that. That's a great story.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it. That's all I got. It's just, if it sounds good once, then do it twice. That's it. That would be the extent of my master class.
Yeah.
That's why I don't do it.
1987 on the See How We Are album.
Yeah, that's right.
The Berger's Back. And
Yes.
I went in a rabbit hole last night because I went in to look at Cyrano de Bergerac. The author, I was real focused on his death. He was either impaled on a beam while walking into a door, or an unspecified disease, or a botched assassination.
You know, that was a song Billy kind of, both Billy and Exene said, oh, we got to do this song. And I was a little less eager to record it. I'd written it even before X was kind of a band. I'd written it just as I moved to LA. We eventually put it on See How We Are because we, I don't know, needed another song or whatever. I never liked that version of it. It was one that we worked up with Al Cooper. And that was cool. I loved working with Al, but Al Cooper, but it wasn't really what the song was meant to be. But Billy and Exene loved it so much that they said, oh, let's do it right.
All right, John, we did it. We made it to the finish line here. The album's called Alphabetland. It's on the Fat Possum Records. It's a 40-year celebration, and I thank you very much for talking to me on Something Came from Baltimore. I am honored to speak to you, and I thank you very much for all the entertainment you've given me in my whole lifetime.
Well, I appreciate the so-called ink or the time, and I hope that people enjoy the record and come out and see us. But in the meantime, just you don't have to go bowling.
Yeah.
You don't have to go bowling. You don't have to get your nails done. Don't be like Georgia. Don't be like Georgia.
Something came from Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore.
Hi, it's Tom Gauker, and I am the host of Something Came from Baltimore. Something Came from Baltimore is a words and music podcast, and it has famous and future famous artists like Sean Jones, Rupert Holmes, Auntie Hammy, Joey DeFrancesco, Go-Go Penguin, Joey Alexander, Bucanti, Gerald Albright, Paula Cole, and Kat Edmondson. It's music that matters. It's music for your ears. Listen and subscribe to Something Came from Baltimore and be a part of that Be More music scene.
Something came from Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore. Something came